Part 10. Crowning Virtue. Friday, July 22nd, +1 NE. Chapter 36. Gute Zeiten, Treblinka. Marcus knew it'd be a horrible day the moment he woke up. He was an emotional mess, exaggerated by the physical exhaustion of his overnight odyssey. Despite spending hours contemplating his situation with Monica, he'd resolved nothing. He didn't remember dreaming, despite sleeping through most of the morning, and paused in bed, facing the ceiling to center himself. Dread poured out the center of his back, coldly climbing his shoulders, gripping his ribs, and crushing his chest. Marcus rose from bed and stared at the parenting plan sitting on his desk. He was overwhelmed by everything in his life at the moment, so his present self promised his future self he'd deal with Diana later. He pocketed his memento mori but failed to do his daily affirmation while lost in thought. He was desperate to talk to someone, anyone. This was a busy week for Anthony, and Jordan still had a score to settle because of Monica. Brad was his last line of defense, but this meant chancing an encounter with Monica. It was a risk he'd take. Sitting on the kitchen counter was a piece of paper, folded into a tent, with Marcus's name in Sharpie. Jordan had left a voiceover letter. "Dearest brother, like the Scorpions said, the winds of change are blowing. Watch yourself. The rest of the world is being distracted. Something is coming. Stay vigilant. XOXO J-Dog 3000. P.S. I hope the MILF didn't give you alien AIDS." That minute of life had been wasted, Marcus thought, setting the paper down and departing for the lab. "What is up?" Brad offered a hug, which Marcus gladly received. "Monica and I were just finishing some good old-fashioned coffee talk," Brad mimicked in his best Mike Myers voice. Monica patted the seat next to her. "We knew you'd come in." Marcus swallowed his frustration for a second time in so many days and sat next to her. "We were chatting about the Coliseum." Brad brought him up to speed. "Monica's never been. I told her it's a marvel of architecture and engineering, all built to celebrate violence. Did you see it in Rome?" "I did," Marcus confirmed. He hadn't shared his full travel itinerary with Brad or Monica, and he definitely didn't mention Rome yesterday. He chalked it up to extrapolation on his research shadow's part. "I can't believe they'd flood it to do naval battles in there. Could you imagine watching something like that?" asked Monica. "It's no different than Hollywood," Marcus taunted. "Look at movies and games. Over time, they've become way more graphic, more realistic. My dad called Hollywood America's Coliseum." "What do you think drives that desire for hyper-realistic violence among your form?" Brad asked them both. "People love the thrill of being close to death," said Monica. "Getting to the edge of danger but knowing they're still safe. X-Tech is the same way. They're all first-person sex and violence, sometimes at the same time. It makes 50 Shades look like a Disney movie." She'd know, Marcus thought. X-Tech was her husband's competition. Brad pushed the conversation onward. "One of your greatest authors and thinkers observed that if we were to eliminate violence from our reading, we would have to eliminate all history, much of the world's great drama, as well as the daily newspaper." "Who said that?" Marcus inquired. "Louis L'Amour." Monica shrugged. "Never heard of him." "His point, I believe, is that your form craves violence at a deep level," Brad hypothesized. "To analyze is not to judge, but objectively speaking, the data is clear. When you've suppressed those instincts, darkness creates outcomes that are almost without exception infinitely worse than a simple story." "I don't know any of the histories he's talking about, but that makes sense to me," Monica offered. "You can't stop it. Damming it up creates a catastrophic flood instead of a slower, more manageable flow." "That was the whole point of the Coliseum," said Marcus. "It channeled humanity's tastes into something less destructive than constant interpersonal conflict outside of the arena's walls." "Do you think it worked?" asked Brad. "Maybe. I think that depends on who you asked in their day. For the average Roman, which was something like one of every 5 humans living on Earth at that time, probably. If you were one of the people getting eaten by the lions, or you didn't volunteer for the job like some of the gladiators did, then probably not." "Daniel in the lion's den," Monica agonized. "That's one example. The group's changed all the time." "Why is that?" asked Brad. "Divide and conquer, like with the Confederation and their redshift agenda," replied Marcus. "Human history is full of examples where one group was marked as other, so society could channel their rage against them. That's exactly what happened in the Holocaust. My mother's family was technically Jewish, and their neighbors from hundreds of years decided to turn on them one day. Technically? Asked Monica. Membership in the tribe was passed through maternal lines. So her mother was Jewish? Monica questioned. Technically, Marcus smiled, recognizing the complexity of the family lineage he was outlining. My maternal grandmother came from a Catholic family that lived in the mountains of northern Italy, raising sheep and slaughtering pigs to survive. You've never told me this, Brad interrupted. Her family fled after being marked as Jewish. What do you mean by marked? Said Monica. Her mother's family could be traced to a Renaissance-era Jewish banker, so the family was handed over to the Nazis. How'd they escape? Monica asked. When deportation started, her family was given forged papers. They followed the flow of other people fleeing. Where did it lead? Asked Brad. They were part of the Aliyah Bet, a wave of illegal immigration to Palestine before part of it became Israel. My great-grandfather died on the journey. The rest of the family lived on a kibbutz. A what? Monica mouthed. Kibbutzes are collectivist farming communities. They started to become more like militias as conflict in the area grew. Which is why her family immigrated to the United States. When did they arrive? Brad asked. November 30th, minus 74 NE. The day after the United Nations recommended Palestine be partitioned, Brad declared. My great-grandmother told our family the Holocaust taught her once a community divides, once it separates, violence and suffering follow. She wasn't going to be a part of that again. Brad shifted in place. She was a wise woman. We call that situation where a form subdivides and clashes the Great Divide. And it can be detrimental in ways you don't fully understand yet. Your family is lucky they escaped with their lives, Monica added. I know, Marcus replied. When we visited Treblinka, our guide said the camp's survival rate was almost 0. Only 70 souls made it out. Out of 1 million people? Monica's shoulders sank. Yes. A collective silence broke out between the three of them. In the case of my family, Marcus continued, fate played an important role. My great-grandfather had been an expat sent to Italy with the army during World War I. His citizenship is what allowed the rest of my family to come back to America when they did. And without all of it, Brad grinned, we wouldn't have the blessing that is Marcus Adams in our lives. Is that why you went to Treblinka? Asked Monica. Mostly. My grandmother made us learn about the Holocaust in unredacted detail. It shaped how I see the world. The Nazis started operating Treblinka 80 years ago, to the day today. Brad nodded. That's right. July 22nd. What was it like? Monica whispered. It's hard to explain. Powerful and reverent all at the same time. More people died on that little spot of land than anywhere else on the entire planet in all of known human history. There's nothing left of the camp. It's just stone monuments for the victims in a large field surrounded by a dense pine forest. Someone at the site told us that for most of the children killed there, it was the only time they'd been in nature. It was cold and quiet. The whole place felt heavy, like the evil was still hanging around in the air. Of all the Nazi camps, why'd you visit that one? Asked Brad. My grandmother told us about a Jew from her kibbutz who'd been sent there. We wanted to see the place for ourselves. Would you share a story with me? Brad implored. Sure. I can only tell you what I remember. His name was Tanhum, maybe, or Mir. He was sent to the ghetto in Warsaw with his family, which was just a fenced-off section of the city they filled with Jews. This man was working as a shoesmith, and one day he came home from work, and his whole family was gone. He didn't know what happened at the time, but it wasn't long before the Nazis sent him to Treblinka too. He said they forced the Jews into cattle cars and took them by rail to the extermination camp. The trip killed many people, but when they arrived at Treblinka, it looked like a rail station, with signs to other cities and a large clock. They told the Jews they had to shower, then they'd be sent to the final destination of their choosing. Everyone was divided by gender, women to the left and men to the right, and corralled into 2 large barn structures. What about the children? Monica gasped. They went with the women. The man who told my family this story only survived because the guards picked him out of the crowd and forced him to work at the camp. Why him? Monica asked. The Nazis needed people to staff the camp. They didn't want to use their soldiers. They pick people with a skill or because of their physical size, then force them into short-term slave labor. What would they have to do? Monica asked. Some pulled people off the trains, others confiscated all luggage the Jews brought, and some moved bodies. Others built a bigger gas chamber when the camp couldn't keep up with all the cattle cars arriving. There was even a group who maintained the camp, including the neighborhood of houses for the hundreds of military guards and their families living there. What happened if they weren't picked? Asked Monica. Once the Jews were separated into the barns, the men were killed first, so they'd have time to cut off the women's hair. What did they want with their hair? Monica interjected. The Nazis were economic vultures, harvesting everything they could from the Jews to fund their war machine. The hair went into socks for their soldiers and fuses for their bombs. Bastards, Monica fumed. From the barns, Nazi guards would drive the naked people down an alley made of barbed wire weaved with pine branches. The Nazis called this the road to heaven. The gas chamber was another barn-looking building with a large Star of David in Hebrew over the entrance stating, "This is the gate through which the righteous pass." The Jews were driven inside to multiple rooms, but everyone had to raise their arms above their heads. Why? Monica asked. So they could fit more people into the chambers at once. The man who shared this story said a pair of tank engines pumped exhaust into the chambers. It'd take 20 minutes for people to die. He was one of the Jews forced to remove the bodies and dig gold from their teeth before they were burned. Then they'd repeat the whole thing for the women and children. Why wouldn't they fight back? Monica raged. Anthony asked my grandmother that same question once. Brad leaned forward. What was her answer? She didn't have one. I've thought about it a few times myself, but I don't have one either. Everything was an illusion. The train station was a fraud, and even the clock tower was fake. They'd turn it to whatever time the trains arrived. They had a pretend infirmary with a red cross on it, but that just led to an execution pit where people were shot in the head. Even the gas chamber was built to resemble a Jewish bathhouse. They kept up the illusion of hope until the last second. How do you fight in that situation? They lied to them, divided them, and preyed on their individual hope of survival to collectively exterminate everyone. Your grandmother was right to keep this story alive. Brad's voice lowered in reverence. Thank you for sharing it with me. Me too, Monica added. You're welcome. Well, on that rather sad note, are you ready to switch gears and get to work today? Brad asked. Sure. Are we going tandem? Marcus glanced at Monica. Yes, but you get started. I need Monica for another minute to finish our coffee talk, Brad said in the same comedic voice. Sequence ID number 741. Data begins. The last thing he remembered was staring at the body of the unnamed man who'd hung himself with a belt. No one bothered to remove his remains because everyone suspected him of being a squealer, a traitor functioning as the eyes and ears of the SS to extend his own miserable life by a few more days. Marcus's father didn't even look at the man's corpse as he shuffled by it. He was numb to death. He, like everyone else, was focused on the revolt about to unfold in mere minutes. His father set an armful of bags on the floor before turning to Marcus and his brothers. Some of the others were caught. What are we going to do? Marcus's older brother stuttered. Calm yourself. We wait for 4 o'clock as planned. They'll beat it out of them, his oldest brother replied. Even through the dim, dusty light of the barracks, Marcus could see the truth on the men's faces. There was no stopping the uprising now. I knew where this would end when I read that miserable book of clichés, their father began. It paid for his Mercedes. It gave him wealth and power beyond Croesus. I knew with their 25-point platform, I knew when they took our citizenship. They called us all Sarah and Israel, not allowed to vote, not allowed to hold office, prohibited from owning newspapers and weapons. We had no way to counter the lies and distrust they stirred against us. They expelled you from their schools and used the courts to put fear into our neighbors' hearts. Then the Crystal Night, then the death squads, the ghettos, the gas vans. We were conquered piece by piece, separated. Done in the name of benevolence. The destruction of the weak to make space for the strong. Children killed just to spare the future from a generation of avengers. We should have cut them down at our door, Marcus's older brother growled, or followed the example of the Masada. Better to have died out there with family than in a place like this. We could have killed a few, but it wouldn't have kept this place from existing, their father grumbled, and then someone else would have taken our places. No, this was our fate, my son, but you will not die today. Your purpose is much more important. You must live to tell everyone what happened here. That while we no longer sing their sleepy camp song about our destinies, the worst is not over. Evil is real. And you, my beloved sons, must be the light to ensure it never happens again. To anyone, anywhere. Their father placed his hands on the oldest brother's shoulders. You speak so bravely of killing. An artifact of the hatred this place has etched onto your heart. It is your burden now, my son. I cannot save you from it. I'm sorry. It's up to you if the memory of this place becomes an anchor or an accelerant. There are two sides to every man. One is the domain of darkness, hate, envy, vengeance, and ego. The other is the domain of light, love, generosity, forgiveness, and benevolence. You have seen for yourself where the darkness leads. Never embrace it. Never forget that it built this place. These men were misled. Do not allow yourself to be misled as well. Never again allow the promise of life to make you complacent in the deaths of others. If you want to avenge the memory of your mother, tell her story. Then find love, and live a happy life far away from this forsaken ground. Their father hung his head. I tell you this now because it's time for you to hear it, so the memory does not die with me. By the luck of my selection, I was still alive the day you all arrived here. While I had the joy of holding each of you again, I carry the burden of seeing your mother sent down the path to oblivion. One of Marcus's younger brothers cried softly, suppressing his emotion to protect their group of conspirators from detection. I had my men weaving pine into the fence that day when she came running toward the chambers. She was at the front of a group, driven naked by the dogs. Her hair had been completely shaved, which was uncommon. They usually left a bit more on the women. She looked so different, but I knew it was her from the eyes. It was a torture too cruel for anyone to bear. But when your mother saw me, it all changed. For a moment, she smiled. It was a feeling of connection that defies description. Our farewell. His father's voice was cracking from the pain of the memory. But it was our moment. No one could take it from us. We spoke one last time through our eyes. I told her I wanted to run to her. She told me there was still hope for me. She was happy. It had given her comfort. And they disappeared. Instead of the normal cries that compete with those monstrous murder machines, this time there was singing. Your mother found the bravery to face her end with joy. Not hate, fear, or anger. She inspired the others to join her, celebrating their final moments with a beautiful song. She was in every word. It was an old folk tune, the melody which I've since lost. I'd give a week's ration of bread to recall it. But it's gone. Like her, like the others. Mercifully beyond the reach of these men. Marcus's father regained his composure and picked up the bags he'd brought into the barracks. Today, my children, I lay down my portion of this burden. I will join your mother, wherever she may be. But that is not your fate. Put these on. Their father handed each of them a Nazi SS uniform. Marcus stared at it while his brothers dressed. Then he quickly followed suit. I can only tell you this once, so listen carefully, their father directed. In a moment, the rest of us must leave. You four will stay here until you hear the commotion. That will be our deaths. You must accept it and move on with the plan. Marcus's youngest brother, barely 14 and ill-fitted to his uniform, started sobbing. Silence! Their father shushed him through locked teeth, grabbing the collar of his son's uniform. The time for that has passed. The guards do not walk around this place with wet eyes. If they discover you, this will have been for nothing. Do you understand? Your tears console you at the jeopardy of us all. Marcus was on edge. Seeing his father shaking his brother in the SS uniform caused a hurricane to rage inside his heart. After the commotion starts, their father recollected himself. Wait a few moments. It will be clear when the time is right. Then run to the stables as fast as possible. Wear your hats and keep your face low so the real soldiers don't notice you. Where are we going, father? Marcus asked. There will be a man at the stables waiting for you. You must salute him as I have taught you. Do you remember? Yes, all four brothers answered in unison. When you salute him, you will ask what the commotion is about. You must answer superhumans. Do you understand? Yes, the brothers said again in tandem. Who is this man we will meet? Asked Marcus. Another unfortunate soul to find himself in this hell. Why should we trust him? Marcus's older brother protested. He gave me the uniforms you're wearing. Well, he may live on the picket fence side of this camp. He does not see us as cargo to be destroyed. He will take you through the western gates and out of this place. From there you will be on your own. Stay in the woods until you are a safe distance from the nearby village. Then turn south and head quickly to Warsaw. Ride the horses until they die. Then eat them. Your uniforms will draw attention. Steal new clothing, but avoid violence if you can. Above all, stay together. You are stronger in a group than alone. I love you, my children. Your benevolence will improve all of mankind. In you all the families of the world will be blessed. That was the promise of... Their father's offering was cut short by the clacking of machine gun fire and an explosion that shook the foundation of their barrack. Sequence ID number 741. Data ends. Marcus woke up in the Liberty Bell with Monica by his side. He assumed she was smiling under her exo, reveling in the joy of being someone else without the baggage of their memories. As usual, he felt like he wanted to die. Meet me in the locker room, but stay in your suits, Brad said in voice but not body. Pretty please. I've never been beyond my locker in this, Marcus asserted. You'll be fine, Monica coached. Promise. As they walked through the locker room, Heidi intercepted them. Are you excited for today's big announcement? Announcement? Marcus was out of the loop. The Federation press conference, Heidi clarified. There's big news coming about the M1 milestone. The pair found Brad waiting by the door leading out of his office. Monica and I were talking earlier, and we think it'd be great for public morale if you both accompanied me to today's press conference and answered questions about the tech shortage. Am I the right person for this? Marcus protested. Shouldn't you get a real techonomics expert instead? The public wants to hear straight from the source, said Brad. I can handle the tech questions if you want, Monica offered, and I can run interference on everything else, Brad echoed. Marcus thought for a moment. I guess if all I have to do is act as arm candy, then I'm up for it. When's the press conference? Right now. Brad nudged them out of the lab. No one blinked at their suit-clad presence on the light rail to Fort Douglas. The majority of the public had become desensitized to the unfamiliar long ago. Many were sporting tech on the center of their foreheads. They were too busy altering their reality to notice. Over the summer, the number of tech zombies wandering an alternative version of reality skyrocketed, adding to the tech shortages Monica volunteered to address with the press. Marcus's post-sequence sickness was in full force. The train's wobble wasn't helping, and the ringing in his ears had set in. He stared out the window at the PSA screen. The Confederation invasion clock was counting down. This doomsday data was a new staple of the sky, added after the Memorial Day announcement of the Confederation's launch for Earth. The clock's large red numbers listed the days, hours, minutes, and seconds remaining. It kept ticking, ticking, ticking. With each evanescent moment, Marcus felt an imaginary knife stabbing him in the stomach. He was attempting to calm his anxiety when Heidi appeared through the cloud cover to deliver a PSA.
Good afternoon, citizens, and welcome to another wonderful day. You can't control others, but you can control how you react. Do something noble, and let the little things slide. Be generous and forgiving whenever you can. If you're facing danger, be brave and inspire others to triumph over their own adversity. Because together, we are magnanimous. This is a reminder we'll be covering the Federation press conference, live, in 30 minutes.
It was 4:00 p.m.